Hello guys, welcome back. We are again back for another standard deck tech, and for this discussion, we see this list as more of particularly utilizing most of the new cards from Phyrexia All Will Be One. And this is the Boros Midrange deck, which I found from a recent tournament results posted at MTG Top 8. It was particularly not finishing first, but because of the list that has quite got me interested, and it was done for the top 8 match up, and that was particularly against some of the top tier decks, but I think it has not performed well during that playoffs matchup, and so it was just done at the 8th, or let's say the quarterfinal results. And so we're going to proceed. Forgot the name of the user, but it was I think it was an online event and tournament. So we're going to discuss this deck as the Boros Midrange, more of the probably just abusing the effects of Robust Forge, some of the Mechanized Warfare effect, and also maintaining the board clear with Brothers Hoods and going mid and end game with Skitter Bleed Battalion. So for the card type distribution, we have 9 artifacts, 2 enchantments. For the creatures, which is basically an artifact creature here, we have 14, 4 instants, 4 sorceries. Nahiri the Forgiving is finally having a scene here with 3 copies and 24 lands. And we're going to go back again later with the past sideboard in and outs and matchups discussion. So first up, this deck will really go with quite good curve because of these several 1 drops and 3 drops here. So we have Shibiran Fusling, so this is basically a 1/1 for 0/1 trample, but it gets +1/+0 for each oil counter on it. So it enters the battlefield whenever another creature or artifact you control is put in the graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on Fusling. So it becomes a 1/1 for starters, and later on with the effects of your creatures artifacts put into graveyard from the battlefield, it gets bigger with these oil counters added. Now for the next creature, for the 3-drop, we have Magmatic Sprinter. So this one is just a 3-2 haste, enters the battlefield with the put 2 oil counters on target creature or artifact or creature you control. So it gets to put out on the Fusling either on that or some blue cards such as this one, where we can also put a oil counter on it. So you can have this option to remove 2 oil counters on Wellspring and draw a card. So this is not only an attacker itself, but also to synergize all of your oil counters on artifacts or creatures you control. So at the end step, return Magmatic Sprinter to its owner's hand unless you remove 2 oil counters from it. So that's basically a good way to max up. At every turn you can get a 3/2 haste. You can get your 3 damage if the board is clear, and then you get to trigger those oil counters added to your artifacts or creatures. So not with that, we also have 3 copies of Might Overseer. This is a Protocols 4/2 first strike. It's a good way that this is also a passive ability to have creature tokens you control gets 1/0 and have first strike as long as it's your turn. And it has this ability to pay 3 for white or 2 life to create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexia Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can block. So basically good source for Might tokens or token producers. In the same way, it goes well to synergize with that of Moondrack, because if 1 or more tokens were created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. So, and also the same way, you can pay 1 white or pay 4 life, since this is 2 Phyrexian mana, sacrifice 2 other artifacts or creatures you control, put an indestructible counter on Moondrack Glory Luminous. So the same way, it can be killed now, and you would still have your passive ability of triggers to keep as long as Moondrack is in the battlefield. So for that setup, it is also having a synergy with Skitter Beam Battalion, which you can also just cast it for prototype. Instead, you're creating 2 tokens that are copies of it. You would instead create 4 because of your Moondrack Glory Luminous ability. At the same time, in the late game, if you get to cast it for its 9 mana cost, you will get 4 4/4s instead of just having those 2 tokens of the 4/4s that cast regular copies. So that's the same way that was basically game over for most of your opponents, as you can attack with that's basically 5 4/4s with trample and haste against them. So what other ways to go with it with the OL, in which you can just get to benefit, is not only for the Wellspring but also for the Orabas Forge. So it has its ability that the main combat put an oil counter on Orabas Forge and create an X1 red Phyrexian horror creature token with trample and haste. That is the power depending on the number of oil counters on Orabas Forge, and then sacrifice that token at the beginning of your end step. But the benefit here is to adding oil counters. You can have Magmatic Splinter do that addition, or you can have also Furnace Scalebomb. So this one has this ability to put 2 oil counters to target artifact or creature you control and then draw a card. So you can also put it here since this is also an artifact. You can basically have at the beginning of combat 3-1 basically, if you have be able to add these 2 oil counters from the Scalebomb, you get to draw a card and also have a very efficient attacker Phyrexian horror creature token with trample and haste. So the token would look like this. This is the ability of the token that can be created. That would depend on power on the number of the oil counters added in your Orabas Forge, or your Orabas Forge. Now for additional damage, this has also in effect with 2 copies of Mechanized Warfare, in which you can add additional 1 to that red artifact source you control. And then would also benefit with that of damage from Brotherhood's End, since this is dealing 3 damage. With the Mechanized Warfare in play, you can deal 4 damage instead. And also this can deal with shenanigans with artifacts with mana cost 3 or less. And for Lightning Strike, of course, with have 3 damage, but with the Mechanized Warfare in play, you get to have 4 damage instead. And also another solid spot removal here is Fateful Absence. You can destroy the creature or planeswalker and then that's have its controller investigate. Now for the Nahiri, what's her role in this deck? You can just basically cast her for 4 or just cast her earlier by paying the 2 life for her completed version. But you got have these 2 benefits of +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature attacks a player each combat if able. That's basically messing up their combat math or combat strategy. And also have to discard a card and draw a card. So in a way, you can have to filter out your unnecessary lands from your hand to draw to your good spells. And then you have this one to pay 0, exile a creature or equipment card with mana value less than Nahiri's Loyalty from your graveyard, and then create a token that's a copy of it. So that token gets haste, exile to be in your step. So you can have also creatures, or basically creatures here, because we don't have any equipment. The build creatures such as Determined Battalion can be exiled to create a copy, since creating this copy would also create these tokens. Since it is from the graveyard, you will get to benefit from its 9 mana cost instead of the prototype cost to create this ability. So basically, exiling them would get you 4 tokens instead of the 2 as per difference from casting it for its prototype cost. Now for the land distribution, this is pretty much basic. Mana fix with Battlefield Forge, the Pain lands, and the Southern Pass for the slow lands, along with the mountains and plains, and 4 copies of the Facade. So what Facades here is you can have oil counters added on target artifact creature you control with a bonus 2 oil counters. So you can have to add it here on Orabas Forge. You can also add for Spell Spring if you need to, or you would need to draw a card. You can also add it for Diffusing if you had to be aggressive as possible. So that's how depend on how you would use your setup here, as long as you get to benefit and optimize your play in this game. So for your sideboard, before we go with the stats of the deck, it's just pretty much generic here. Just 2 copies of additional copies of Fateful Absence, Lightning Strikes. I would prefer upgrades over this one because we can need to have destroy significant artifacts from your opponents. And also 4 copies of Scrub's Hide. So this is basically replacing some of your creatures with a good 2-drop here, because you have the consistently having your Precious Mites tokens generated, and maybe go with the Toxic ability or positioning your opponent as a main strategy. And we also have 2 copies of Phyrexia. This is sort of a mass removal additional for Boros End, in which you can also destroy each non-permanent mana value equal to number of oil counters. So since you are adding as oil counters as your main strategy, you can just basically add more here if you need to destroy non-permanents equal to its mana value equal to its oil counters. Now, for also as a move to get sort of a long game or having already 10 counters on it, so you can also use this one to remove 10 oil counters from among permanents you control and sacrifice Silex, so they can deal 10 damage to the target. So this can also act as a win condition in the late game because of all of your oil counters are added, and that is basically your main strategy. So having 10 oil counters would not really a long shot because of this build of the deck. So it can basically 10 damage to your opponent's face and basically killing them in the process. Also, we have Unlicensed Hearse, since this is going well with the graveyard shenanigans against most of your opponents. So this is probably the best answer for the matchup. And also try to set up to have a good attacker later on with just screwing it with 2 mana. And last but not the least is wedding announcement. I think this also goes with against mid-range decks that has some several spot mass removals, since it can constantly create this 1/1 humans and also have you do good card draw source, and also have an anthem in the late game with wedding festivity. So that's the sideboard plan basically against mid-range, against graveyard shenanigans, and also against aggro decks. And particularly, I think the main deck is already well built against most of the aggro because of the Boros and spot removals, and also some consistent creatures that can overcome them in the late game. And for the deck stats, as the last part of this video, we have mana curve for 3.25. As you can see, most are 3 and 4 mana cost. Color distribution, we have 29 for red and 19 for white, but the red producers are basically balanced with the red 14 and white also 14. For the deck tokens, we have only 5 for Clue Token, Human for the winning announcement, Aura Blast, Suppression Horror again, and Protection Might as produced by the Scribe side, by the Seer, and also some other source of this deck. So that's basically it for this Boros Midrange. I think you've seen probably a similar deck build as you go along with your daily grinds on MTGO or MTG Arena. Feel free to comment below what you think the deck would perform, or how it does perform against your deck archetypes or the matchups in particular. So that's about it, guys. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe, notifications bell for more updates and also future uploads of deck decks as we go along in the coming March of the Machines. We would expect more to have some pre-builds or some deck boosts to come on this channel. And again, thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.